Yoshihiro Togashi has an indistinguishable quality of creating fantastic villains. Across his work, he's found success in his incredible character design, but somehow I always find myself most intrigued by his villains. In Hunter x Hunter, many of my favorite characters are villains. Crollo Lucilfer, Meruem, Hisoka, Pakunoda, all these characters have so many layers to them. At first, you're meant to hate them, but after some time, you find yourself loving them. I've already made a video about Meruem, the king of the Chimera Ants. You should check that out. But today, we're gonna focus on some of his earlier work, Yu Yu Hakusho. And before we get into the video, spoiler warning. I'm gonna spoil through the entirety of the Dark Tournament arc, so if you haven't seen it, go watch it first. Don't watch any more of this video. I love this arc, man. I don't want to ruin it for anyone. Oh, and subscribe. Okay, now into the video. The first major antagonist, younger Toguro, is a seemingly straightforward brute character who is the strongest and wants to fight the strongest. But throughout the Dark Tournament arc, Togashi expands the character and reveals he's much deeper and more convoluted than he leads on. By the end of the Dark Tournament arc, we see into his mind, get backstory, and even see him in his most vulnerable state. Toguro is a character of many layers. Unraveling those layers, however, is tough. It feels like each time we see Toguro, we peel back another layer. His first introduction, he's just a hired thug. We don't know any more about him, he's just a hired thug. Then we peel back the first layer and find out that he's not a hired thug by Terukane. He's actually hired by Sakio. But then we find out that he actually wants to fight these two youths, Yusuke and Kuwabara, again, seeing that there's more to his agenda than just being the hired thug of Sakio. But we're given hints as early as the same chapter in which he's introduced. When Toguro is tasked with making Yukina cry crystal tears, he tells her she should just cry.
You can make this easier on yourself. Give up hope and start practicing how to cry.
And in the next chapter, Terukane orders him to fight a chimera to prove his worth, and he begrudgingly does it, stating he likes animals and is only doing it because he's ordered to. These moments are key for his character, shining a little bit of light on the fact that he isn't just a strong, mindless brute. These moments are really easy to glance over the first time around, since at this point, Toguro is just a guy. We don't get any moments of his backstory for a really long time, so watching through the anime for the first time, these may not even be memorable. Togashi lays out the blueprint for this character in a very interesting way, not giving his full backstory until the bitter end on the way to his afterlife. However, he lays the groundwork in the top 4 of the Dark Tournament, which is pinned decently far into the arc. Toguro clears up a misunderstanding for Genkai that nobody else knew, tying the two together. This is our first insight into their relationship. It's not until just before the finals we see Toguro face to face with Genkai. We see that Toguro hasn't changed in 50 years, and they used to be allies. Toguro feared that as a human, he can only live so long, and he won't be the strongest forever. And with his wish for winning the Dark Tournament, he wished to become a yokai that doesn't age. Now, since he's chosen the path that took everything away from him, what does he have? He has strength. So he lives out the rest of his life searching for an opponent that justifies him using 100% of that strength, leading him to his fight with Yusuke, Genkai's successor. You see, this is where we truly get to understand Toguro. We don't know his past and the reason behind him needing strength, we just know the extent he would go to attain it. Later after his death, we see his backstory, which explains that he wasn't strong enough to protect his comrades from the demon Chiron. Toguro blamed himself for the death of his students and walked the path of the demon who took everything away from him, with the intention of inevitably falling to someone who could beat him at 100%. During the final fight between Toguro and Yusuke, Toguro realized he's finally come to his conclusion. Toguro sees this as an opportunity to fight at 100% and shifts from trying to win the fight to trying to draw 100% of Yusuke's potential. During the fight, Yusuke realizes the exact path that Toguro took and sees he could have found himself on that path as well. They both realize they are the same. In this moment, Yusuke sees with full clarity that Toguro was just a normal person who fell on this path. He could just as easily have fallen on the same path, yet he challenged that. This battle is more a clash of ideals than a clash of fists. Right then, Yusuke sees he's stronger than Toguro because he isn't fighting alone, and wins the fight. In the end, Toguro became the monster that crushed all of his friends, and saw that Yusuke could too. But instead, Toguro became the catalyst for Yusuke's growth, allowing him to move on and become strong without the disregard for everyone else in doing it alone. The way in which he sought power wasn't the only way. but to him it did feel like the only way. He wasn't able to protect his friends through strength, so he sold his soul for that strength. And now the successor to the only person he cared for used him as a catalyst to search for the strength through himself and others. Even in the very end, all he could think about was Yusuke and Genkai, not himself, as shown by the fact Toguro anticipated she could come back via the tournament-winning wish. He even chose the worst possible afterlife of continued torture until it fades into nothingness. His last moments were spent regretting making Genkai worry about him, and hoping that Yusuke would never fall to his level.